We're thrilled that Martina is going to be staying with us for our first panel discussion here today alongside two Irish sporting legends. We're delighted to have former world champion and Olympic silver medalist Sonia O'Sullivan and one of the greatest rugby players of all time, former Leinster, Ireland and Lions captain Brian O'Driscoll. Don't forget, if you want to get involved as well, you can keep bringing your questions in on Twitter using that hashtag #ThinkItAskIt. Now, welcome to all of you. Thrilled to have just a panel of absolute legends here today. It really is thrilling. So, Sonia, just picking up on some of what Martina was talking about there, what do you think needs to happen next in order to kick this thing on?
Well, I think, just listening all together this morning, just where we've got to so far, I think just to be making some progress is a positive, and it's a positive that, we have to build on. It's a solid foundation over the past 2 years, the work that's been done, the highlighting of women's sport, particularly in Ireland, but also spreading the word through Irish athletes who live outside of Ireland. They're spreading it to their countries and communities as well. But now, this is not the end. This is just the starting point, really, to really build on this. And, one thing that really stands out for me is the level of equal billing, and highlighting women's sports, not as a women's sport, but as a sporting event that's taking place. And it becomes a headline event, and it's the first thing in the news. It's the first thing before the event, during the event, and after the event, not always kind of playing second fiddle to, men's sports or sport in general, that, it should be just seen as sport. I know when I was growing up, athletics, we've always been very lucky in a way that we have been integrated together. Men and women's sport compete together at the same track, at the same stadium, in the same events at the World Championships, Europeans and Olympics. So I'm very used to that. So I think a lot of other sports need to learn from that. And it's the integration of mixing everybody together to be taking part, at the same level, in front of the same audiences, and, getting the same coverage, no matter what level it is, it all needs to be on a par with each other.
If we're more than halfway there, how much progress do you think that we've made, Sonia, even since the early 90s?
Oh, I think a huge amount of progress across other sports, particularly. I mean, I think the athletics was definitely up there for a long time. The big difference for us was, like tennis, the equal payment, and that's come into line, particularly for the World Championships. Now everything is treated the same, and even with events like up as far as the 2004 Olympics was the first time when the women's pole vault came into the Olympics. And people looked at it like a very second class event, and they didn't value the world records that were being set. But if you look at the progress that has made now in 16 years, now it's one of the more exciting events. So I think for the progress to happen, I think there has to be just constant persistence all the time to continually kind of push the boundaries, and like Martina was saying, to push the limits, and to, not let there be any limits, to surpass the limits as best you can. And it's, in a way, it's a bit like banging your head against the wall. You keep doing the same things over and over and over again, and if you keep doing it, then eventually you'll break through and you'll make a big statement. And that's, what it takes to be noticed. And I think you just have to go with that route, and women have no problem doing that, because we don't give up easily, and we are strong, and we've got a lot of endurance, and you just have to keep pushing forward all the time. And to do that takes a lot of patience as well, in the pursuit of excellence and the pursuit of perfection, which is what we're all aiming for. And by doing that, then I think you start to believe more in yourself, and you have the confidence. And then when you have the belief and the confidence, you're more able to stand up and express that and make the connection with people. And that's the big thing for me, to have the coverage and the support of women's sports, is that you make the connection with the public, and it's the general public, men, women, all ages, that you get their support and they want to see more. And we just have to keep performing and raising the bar constantly to get that support, from all levels, as we said before, from the media, from the sponsors, and from the fans, to continue to go further and to see changes taking place. But it is going to take time, and I think we do have to take the small steps and appreciate taking the small steps and appreciate every little bit of progress that's made, every day.
Because this is a long-term goal, Brian, and I know we've re-established our connection to you there because we do want to make this a better world for our children so that they're not having these same discussions that we're having right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, we've made huge inroads over the course of the last 2 years. And look, listening to all of Sarah's stats, it's inspiring to hear that perceptions are changing, but it feels as though it's the tip of the iceberg, that so much more needs to be done. And we have to be careful not to make it an echo chamber because, women pushing other women's sport is an easy win. The next onus now is on the male population. And it's on fathers of daughters, but it's on fathers of sons as well to kind of inspire them, let them know that parity and equality is something for the future. It's taken a long time to get to this point, but that's the future. And it's funny, there's still going to be kickback because, from certain factions of society, some people don't want to rock the boat. Some people don't want to change the status quo. I've heard some comments on social media talking about, the feminazis have gotten hold of you when you've tried to promote women's sport, or when talking about more visibility in the papers or in the media, people referring to articles, we don't want any more soppy features. Soppy features, women promoting their aspirations and their ambitions. So there is going to be kickback, but there is a huge onus on people, that men in particular, that have a voice, and that realize that it's gone too far to this point. I spoke to my wife earlier on, and when she was in school, she told me that she didn't have a half day on a Wednesday for sport. I was like, "What did you do?" She said, "We did a full day's school." And I know that's a long time ago, but the world has changed for the better. But it feels as though we've so much further to go to create this virtuous circle. If we can get more visibility for women's sport, therefore, you get more participation at grassroots level. You have ready-made role models. You have brands that want to get involved, and then therefore you have funding, and it becomes a positive circle of itself. So it's there's a big onus on us, and there's been sportsmen that are still playing in Justin Rose that have promoted women's golf events. Andy Murray's been a big voice for women's tennis. So I think more people can step up to the plate and yeah, take a bit of responsibility. It's easy to stay quiet and just motor on, but if you want something different for your daughter and for future generations, I think you have to lend a little bit of support yourself. Get out of your comfort zone.
The fear, Brian, when it comes to men, and you know this better than I do, obviously, is that by them standing up, that something might get taken away from them. Like, so whether that's monetary, whether your women are looking for more money, that maybe the men might need to take less, and maybe some of that is the fear here, and that's understandable too.
It is. It's difficult, and it's difficult when you're in the middle of it. Because as a male athlete, you're incredibly selfish. You're focused on your own performance. Even if you're in a team sport, you are very focused on getting the best out of yourself. And in a short career, trying to monetize it, to its maximum potential. So I can understand why you mightn't hear as many, vocal current players, but having taken a step away and the circumstances that I find myself in with a 7-year-old daughter, and hearing her as she has aspirations in school, and just hearing, wavering opinions as to whether women should be able to match men. And she's in a co-ed school, a fab school, but you still hear inklings that it's kind of boys first, and it's second class citizen, and you're trying to drive it into her that is never the case, and we will never accept that. And it's funny, Jackie, the last week we've been reading your book, and it's those sort of things that are really, really important. Again, it's about visibility. I know that you can't plug it, but I can for you. Girls play too. And about Irish female sporting heroes. Sonia's featuring, and every night reading 2 stories, and it's not just my daughter, but it's my son. He's the one that wants to hear more about it. he's not gender specific at the moment. Something happens along the way in school or in clubs where, you have the better run of things, that all of a sudden, you don't want to change anything because you get the best of everything. Whereas we need him to understand that parity is vital going forward. We don't know how long this process is going to take, but we need to inject it into the next generation, and that's certainly what I'm trying to do with my kids.
Yeah, and look, that's
Yeah.
admirable, Martina, isn't it?
Yeah, can I say so? Yeah, it's fantastic, and people pay attention more to men than women. Men are validated immediately. Women have to fight their way in, but we need to make sure that this is not we're not pushing for taking away from boys or men. But we are also not less than. This is not a question of either boys or girls. It's a question of also girls, also women on equal footing. So it's not taking away, but being a part of on an equal level. So that's all it is. So anybody that has a problem with women being equal, maybe they need to feel superior too. But guess what? Whenever you need to feel superior to someone else, then that makes you inferior. So we need to just keep pushing that this is not about taking away anything from somebody, but adding to it.
But as Brian said there, Martina, I mean, this is a long road. If you think that in 1973 the US Open was paying you guys the same money, and it took Wimbledon all the way to 2007, obviously the shame wasn't working there. Like, that's 3 decades. It shouldn't have taken that long.
It shouldn't have. I mean, one time we even heard this. It was like 5%. It wasn't about the money. It was the principle. They just thought women should get less. And I mean, one ridiculous excuse we even heard one point that, well, we need part of the budget to go for the petunias because we need petunias all around the grounds. I'm not sure who said that, but needless to say, it was a man. The excuses that come out of people's mouths are they just come up with some amazing stuff. It would be so much easier just to give the equal prize money and be done with it. Now let's see how we can make the sport better, how we can make this tournament better for everybody, for the spectators, for the fans, for the media, for the players. Male, female should not come into the equation. So we're still fighting that, obviously, but there's still male players that come up, oh, well, women shouldn't be getting as much as men. What's it to you? I'm not taking anything from you. You're getting the same amount of money, but we also are getting it. So it shouldn't have taken that long. And I read somewhere where they're figuring that women will get equal pay to men in like year 2100 something. Like it's like another 80 years from now. I'm like, I don't want to wait that long. I would like to see this be the end result in my lifetime, but I know that won't happen. But we just need to keep pushing, and breaking down those barriers. We knock down the wall, and then another wall shows up. Well, you gotta just keep going, just keep chiseling away. Take a hammer, take a screwdriver, take something, but keep chiseling away.
We were lucky in a lot of ways, Sonia, as young girls in this country, because we had you ahead of us who broke down a lot of those walls for a lot of young girls in Ireland, and the visibility of role models is so big. But I was looking back, and interestingly, in 1995, when you won that world title, that was actually the first time that athletes were paid the same when they won, for male and female. Did that to you feel like a validation at the time, or were you even aware of it?
I think at the time, I wasn't really aware of it. I think, we speak about things like this a lot more now. And even the whole idea of being a role model and standing up and using, the value of my voice and my actions to lead for the people and the girls who are following behind me. At the time, I didn't realize, that this was part of my, I suppose, role or my job as an athlete, and to be I saw myself as maybe inspiring young athletes because I had been inspired by, Irish male athletes, but still they were doing the same activities that I was doing. So then I did fall into that position to inspire young girls. But at the time, it wasn't something that I was told about or educated, or even I didn't know that was part of it. And now when I see all the work that's being done, I wish I did know that, because it's a lot harder now to explain to people, look, this is what I did. And, there was a number of girls who were inspired by that. And now they do lots of other sports because of that, because running is such a universal sport that, it helps to people to be better at other sports. And, they just, girls throughout Ireland believe that if I could go out there and compete with the best in the world, then why couldn't they? And, looking at that, the best in the world may be just the best in your local field sometimes to go out there. I'm going to try and be better today than I was yesterday. And that's what it is. It's just getting girls to kind of be strong and brave and to go out and just want to challenge themselves. And by seeing somebody doing that on the highest of levels, that they see that they can do it on the smallest of levels. And that's just one step then towards, achieving success and greatness. And, you know, I suppose sharing that to the world and to their whole families and parents. It's a lot different world, and I think people are a lot more engaged now throughout their families. It's not just me out doing my own thing, but you're being supported by your family and by your friends, and not just your core family, but your extended family. Everybody is involved because they all want to be a part of it, because now there's so much more visibility of what success does, not just for the individual athlete, but for the whole country. And the energy that gives to people, and the it just gives a whole lift to people. And you notice it at certain times, particularly a couple of years in 2017 when the Irish women's hockey team, when they were so successful, the whole country got behind them, and it didn't matter, who was playing. It was an Irish team out there, getting the silver medal in the World Cup.
Yeah, and look, Brian, that's it. This is all about success. We just want successful sports people. Like, Sonia mentioned that, even the TV figures, there was over 300,000 people watched that, the Camogie All-Ireland final, very similar story. When the Irish women's rugby team won the Grand Slam, when they beat New Zealand, the country can get behind that. This is not about men or women. This is just about successful Irish sports people.
And we love that. We love to support our own. It doesn't matter what it is. But it does feel as though that women have to be at a different level to get coverage. They have to be truly world class. What about the next level? What about those that are competing and doing well, but maybe not quite getting there? And I think sometimes we've got to think about putting the cart before the horse with regards to media coverage, where maybe the end product isn't quite where we want it to be right now. But until we publicize it, until we get it out there, until we tell people to listen in and take an involvement and try and get behind them, you will never grow the sport in any substantial way. It feels like we'll talk about Katie Taylor and Stephanie Roach when she won the Puka, but we also need to be talking about other levels, because we talk about other levels of men's sport. We talk about down through the grades a little bit. You don't have to be a world beater to sometimes get press from a male perspective. There seems to be different rules for women. So I think that's a really important factor. One other thing I would say is, and sometimes the argument that men will put up is that there's not the same level of interest in sport. In women's football, for instance, are the same. Do the same amount of women want to watch women's football as men want to watch men's football? I looked at the stats of Gaelic football and hurling last year. 40% of the audience share was women watching hurling and football. So women don't like sport. Do you think they don't want to support their own? Of course, if we put it on, they will watch it. My little 5-year-old went out for a walk in a park a couple of weeks ago as a family, and we were going to the playground, had an ice cream. We were going to the playground, and we came across a women's Gaelic football match. And we watched it for a couple of minutes, and my daughter didn't really have that much interest, but my son started watching. And after about 10 minutes, I said, "Okay, do you want to go on to the playground?" And he goes, No, let's hang here and watch this. So, it's about building it into our kids, no doubt, but making it accessible. It doesn't feel like the same level of accessibility is there for girls as it is for our boys. So, as I said, it's to talk about something that I mentioned, to achieve and succeed, there has to be accessibility and there has to be visibility. and we need to continue pushing that, because we've done some good work with it, but we've a long way to go.
Yeah, we certainly do. And with that in mind then, Martina, if there was a message that you were to leave the Irish viewers with today about that question that you want to put forward about how we take the next steps, what would it be?
I think, change comes from top to bottom easier, but really, real change really comes from bottom to the top. So just keep plugging away on every level that you can. I think overall we need more women in position of power, whether it's in business or politics and sports, on board of directors, etc. In the newsrooms, more women photographers, more women writers. If women are writing those stories, they're more likely to write about women, as well as, of course, men. So we just need to keep plugging away and make ourselves heard. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and speak up. Maybe sometimes we have to shout, but with a deep voice, so that they're not giving us a hard time that we're so shrill. But really, just keep speaking up and plug those holes whenever we can, whether it's on a local level, in your school, in your small town, or on a national level. So being silent is not acceptable. You just have to keep speaking up and make those changes whenever you can. Just keep plugging away.
Yeah, she's absolutely right, Sonia. I mean, as Martina put it, this is just keep on plugging, keep on pushing, and at some point, this thing is going to change.
Yeah, I think, we can get stuck in traditions and the way things have always been done. And I think now we need to understand that, the way things have been done in the past is not set in stone. And, sometimes it's easier to just fall into these old methods, and we need to break free of the old habits and break for change and make a difference.
And Brian, as you said earlier, some people resist this change, but eventually they become the minority, don't they?
They will do. And to not accept, those sort of comments and challenge people on them, I think that's the important thing. I think men to champion, if I was to say one thing, I think it's about men championing women's sport and not seeing it as competition, but a progression of life and of society, and for future generations. I do think as well, on top of all that, we still need lots of women coaches, lots of women administrators, not to take an eye away from that as well, to promote themselves, to promote from within. But I think my message would be an onus on men. Don't have to have a daughter, but just men of children to try and promote women's sport more over the coming months and years, and we'll eventually get there. It doesn't matter how we get there, it's about getting there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Here from all of us. Thanks so much, guys. We really, really enjoyed your company. To Martina, to Sonia, to Brian. Phenomenal discussion here. It's trending on Twitter. So many people getting involved as well. We don't have time to get to some of your comments. We might do that a bit later on. But don't forget, you at home can keep that conversation going using that hashtag ThinkItAskIt.